Hello, and welcome to 6th grade Geography Virtual Style. I'm your teacher, Mr. Cohn. As I'm sure you've heard, school is closed until April 6th due to the coronavirus. Even though I can't teach you in person this week, there are a few important assignments we need to complete as we continue learning about the continent of Europe. Before we get into Europe's resources and culture, let me introduce to you my co-hosts, who will be keeping me company during the next few weeks so I don't get lonely here at school by myself. First off, we have Captain America. After defeating the Titan Thanos and saving the galaxy, restoring the lives of half of the universe, Captain America agreed to be my desk toy. Next up, we have the one-eyed flamingo stapler, Delphi. Next, we have the radioactive unicorn. And finally, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar is one of the most interesting and important lives in world history, and you'll learn all about him in 7th grade. During the next few weeks, my co-hosts and I will make a video each week explaining what it is you're going to learn this week, and also keeping you updated on important news and world events. We will do this using the whiteboard of awesomeness behind me. The first thing we'll talk about today on the whiteboard of awesomeness is the 2020 primary election. Last night, 3 different states voted. The states of Florida, Illinois, and Arizona all voted in a primary election. Vice President Joe Biden won all 3 states, increasing his lead over his rival Bernie Sanders. Mr. Biden, you can see in purple up here, has reached 1,164 delegates. Remember, delegates are like points in a primary. He needs to hit 1,991 to become the Democratic nominee for president. So as you can see, he is getting close to that number. Mr. Sanders won 0 states last night. He is at 879 delegates. He did win a few delegates last night, and here's why. Even though Bernie won 0 states, he still did sort of well in a few of those states. And if you do sort of well, you get some points along the way. You can either win a congressional district, or you can cross what's called the 15% barrier, meaning that you get above 15% of the vote in a state, so you get some points. So Bernie's delegate count did go up, even though he did not win a state. Next on the whiteboard of awesomeness, we have my face. During this time, we have a lot of crazy things going on. One of them would be I'm going to grow a beard. At the moment, my beard level could be best characterized as invisible, but we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. When you return to school, I will have some kind of beard on my face. And finally this week, we have our quote of the week, which is from the famous rapper Pusha T. The quote says, "Set the parameters. You're either with the pro ballers or the amateurs." Now, this quote is very important for online virtual schooling because Mr. T is talking about having parameters or boundaries. If you don't set some boundaries for yourself, you may find that you spend the entire time on Fortnite or watching Netflix. And as fun as that might be, you really need to create a schedule for yourself so that you can be a pro baller at school or complete your assignments and do well in your classes. If you set aside a few hours a day and schedule it every single day, you will get your work done on time and be a successful student just like Mr. T would want you to do. If you don't, you may find yourself in a giant hole when we come back from school with no work done. And now, on to Europe. Europe is a very important continent as we have found out, and today we're going to learn more about it. Wait, what's that? Captain America. You're right, I forgot. It's time for the secret compartment. What could be inside of your head today? Let's find out. Ah! What's that? It's a picture of Tom Brady in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniform. No! Mr. Brady, what could you do? After 20 seasons of being the greatest quarterback of all time for the greatest team of all time, you're going to the god-awful Tampa Bay Buccaneers? No! Patriots fans like myself are not happy after learning yesterday that Tom Brady has signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of the worst teams in football. But we'll see what happens. Maybe his skills will help them. Anyway, people like me are sad. If you hate the Patriots, you're probably happy. Captain America, thank you for rubbing it in. And back to Europe. Your first reading assignment is about Europe's resources and industries. Let's review. A natural resource can be defined as things in nature that are used for human gain. So these would be like forests or farmland, oil or water. They're all things that we as humans need to sustain our lives and also make money off of. Industry is a word that has a couple different meanings. The first one would be turning natural resources into goods or services. For example, a forest would be an example of a natural resource. If you cut those trees down and turn them into tables and chairs, you have just created a good or service. Using a natural resource, that would be an industry. The next meaning is what people do for work. As a teacher, I work in the education industry. I teach you as I am doing now via the internet, but the education industry is more than just teachers. It also includes anyone who helps teachers. So paraprofessionals, principals, janitors even, or people who create your textbooks or make these beautiful maps would all be considered part of the education industry. They are working together to create education. We think of industries as being a large group that all creates a similar product, like the automotive industry makes cars. That would include not just people that sell cars, but the people that make the cars in the factories or make the parts for the cars in other factories. Altogether, they'd be considered an industry. So reading 1 is about Europe's resources and industries. Reading 2 is about Europe's people. Where do people in Europe come from? Well, historians and archaeologists have put together that the people who now live in Europe come from what is called the Indo-European ethnicity. So, Indo-European is a big word that basically means India and Europe. India meaning like the country. People in India and people in Europe, if you go back thousands and thousands of years, have a similar heritage. And as we've learned in our earlier units this year, people that have a similar heritage also have similar languages. So, if you trace back the origins of the languages in Europe and in India, they all have one similar language. This is called the Indo-European language family. In Europe, there are 3 main branches of that family. The first is called the Balto-Slavic language group. As you can see, it is directly descended from the Indo-European language family. Today, no one speaks Balto-Slavic, but they speak a version of it called Russian or Polish, among many others. The next language group we need to know about is the Romantic language group. Now, this is not the language you talk to your girlfriend or your boyfriend in. It is a language meaning from ancient Rome. So, Romantic in the Roman sense. This comes also from the Indo-European family, and today we don't speak Latin anymore like the Romans did. We speak either Italian, French, or Spanish. These 3 languages are considered Romantic, and they have similar words and vocabulary across all 3 languages. The third and final group of languages to know about is the Germanic group, which includes German, obviously, but also English. Yes, English, our language, comes from the Germanic language group. That's because in about the year 400, a German tribe called the Saxons invaded England and took over. As we learned before, if you take over an area and conquer it, you get to make the rules. So, all you world conquerors out there, remember that. You conquer a place, you get to make the rules. That's why, as an English language, we come from the Germanic group. Religion is also brought up in here. Remember, the biggest religion in Europe is Roman Catholicism. It's a part of Christianity, as well as Protestant Christianity, which would include things like Baptists, Methodists, and the religions that we mostly have in America. Jewish religion is also important in Europe, as well as the religion of Islam. Your third reading this week is about Europe's culture. Europe has a very old and historic culture that's influenced the world in many ways. One of those ways is on the board of awesomeness behind me. Elections. democracy, republics. Our government in the United States comes from England, which comes from Rome, which came from Greece. So there's a cultural tradition of how our government works. The idea that we get to vote for our leaders goes all the way back to ancient Athens and the idea of democracy there. Another important cultural thing in Europe are the buildings, or the architecture. There are many, many buildings in Europe that are hundreds and thousands of years old, and they date back to the ancient Greeks and Romans as well. The two most famous are the Parthenon in ancient Athens, a temple to the goddess Athena, or the Colosseum in ancient Rome, which was an ancient stadium where they would watch people fight to the death or fight animals. Pretty gross, but hey, it happened. Blame Caesar. Actually, don't blame him, it wasn't his fault. But, ancient Rome. Another thing about European culture is art. European art is super famous. How many of you have seen this woman before? Mona Lisa, right? If you wanted to see her in person, you could go to the famous art museum, the Louvre in Paris. Well, actually, you couldn't go there now, it's closed because of the virus, but you could have gone there months ago, or you can go there in the future. She was painted by the Italian artist Leonardo da Vinci. The Monet's Water Lilies, a French artist, also very famous. Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh, the Dutch painter who once cut off his own ear because he couldn't paint a self-portrait the way he wanted to. Europeans also have written many famous books and plays. The ancient Greek author Homer is famous for writing the Odyssey, which you'll read in 7th grade. And the English playwright William Shakespeare is famous for writing many, many plays that have influenced culture throughout the generations. There is a lot more about European culture you can learn, and I have posted some videos on Classroom to help you if you would like to use your time to better your education. You can watch those awesome videos and learn some more things about all of these awesome people, places, and art. So, to wrap up, remember, by Friday, you need to have read and completed all 3 of the readings on Classroom and taken the quizzes. If you have any questions, please email me or hang out with me on Google during our set time from 1:30 to 2:30 every day. Remember, stay healthy out there. Enjoy your time with your friends and family. Take some time for yourself and have fun. And remember, you rock. I'm Mr. Cohn, and I will see you after spring break.